It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor.
Okay, Decatur, it's 9 o'clock, and it's time to meet your neighbor right here on Voices of Decatur with your host, Mike Johnson.
All right. Welcome to Decatur FM. We are any and everything Decatur, and we promised you another great Meet Your Neighbor tonight, and I hold true to my promises, guaranteed. The gentleman here tonight, sitting right across from me in our hot seat, is a really, really dear friend of mine, and I wanted to introduce him to the neighborhood, because I know that Meet Your Neighbor sometimes is about Decatur residents, but every now and then we get our residents from outside of Decatur to come on in, sit, chat, and try to figure out, you know, what we've been working on, which is my personal thesis of how do we make ourselves better as far as a community, and that is, of course, by meeting each other. So I want to welcome him to the studio. Mitch Free is live in the building. What's up, Mitch?
How you doing? Nice to be here.
Man,
what a great studio.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you actually accepting my invitation to come on by.
Not a problem.
All right.
Not a problem.
And I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time. And I think one of the things that I've been looking forward to sitting and talking with you about is just the industry as a whole, what you've been doing as a whole, and introduce yourself basically to the city of Decatur.
Yeah.
Right? I know we're small compared to the big things that you're doing right now.
On.
But I mean, I definitely wanted to bring some insight because you are definitely a free thinker, and that is one thing that I've always respected about you and our friendship. So let's start by introducing you to everybody and giving everybody the rundown. So Mitch Free is the serial entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
He is it's so nervous when you're talking about your friends, so you got to write like your key points down. He's a manufacturing industry maverick, and he's a global trade expert. He does so many things. When I say this guy is a hashtag badass, all right, and if you ever spend some time with this gentleman, right, the things and the conversations that you will get into will blow your mind. So let's start here. Let's start with how you got into the manufacturing business, right? You want me to tell or you want to tell?
No, I mean...
You want to see how much I know?
Yeah, that's all right. I'll start.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for having us. Awesome. Decatur is awesome.
Isn't it a cool place?
I just love driving around over
Do you?
here. Like, I live over in Brookhaven.
Yeah.
And if my business wasn't, like, right there,
yeah,
I'd love to be over here.
Wouldn't it? It'd be cool.
But traffic, man, in Atlanta, you just can't do it, right?
Especially this weekend.
Especially
this weekend.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Right?
No, so I mean, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like a lot of kids, you know, when you're young and you're getting out of high school, I went to engineering school up in Marietta, Southern Tech at the time.
Yeah.
But I was failing miserably after the first semester, so I just quit.
Right.
And what I realized was, school had come pretty easy for me, math, everything. I never had to study. And then I got into engineering school, and I was like, whoa, it was really fast.
Right.
And I couldn't keep up. So started exploring options. Ended up in trade school to take a course in manufacturing technology,
yeah.
And I think I didn't exactly know what it was when I started it, but
yeah.
boy, after a few months of it, I was like, man, I have found my lane, and it was really good. So I went through a year program of manufacturing technology, which was learning how to read engineering drawings and then turn blocks of metal or aluminum into really precision objects.
Like really cool looking things.
Yeah, things that go on whatever, boats, cars, airplanes, rockets, satellites, missiles, you name it.
You name it, he can make it, right? That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so you actually went through this trade school,
Mm-hmm.
got out.
Yep.
Then what?
Well, then I went to work in a shop as an apprentice.
Okay.
And the first year or so, I was starting to regret my decision.
Yeah.
Because it was the most laborious, monotonous, painful job. For instance, one of the company that I worked for, we built dies that would stamp out automotive parts.
Yeah.
And you think about like the hood of a car and how big that is. And you've got a male and a female piece that comes together and presses the metal. Well, you have to polish that thing to like a mirror polish so it doesn't leave marks and dings when it hits the metal.
Yeah.
Well, guess what I did for like 4 months? I stood there rubbing on that piece of metal till it had no marks in it.
Right.
I mean, wore off the fingerprints on my fingers.
Right.
I mean, boy, it was a
Mr. Miyagi Karate Kid type thing.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
And then I think there was a part for Ford Motor Company's like exhaust gas valve or something that whoever had made it had forgot to put a hole in it. So, and there was like 1 million of them.
Yeah.
So there were just crates of them lined up, and they made a little fixture to put it in, and I had to stand at a drill press and drill a hole in 1 million little valves.
Boom. By hand. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That took me about 3 to 4 months.
Right.
Every day, just go in and drill more holes.
Right.
I mean, it was, so I was really, regretting.
School of Hard Knocks.
School of Hard Knocks, man.
Right.
I earned the stripes,
Right.
And then I finally got over to running some manual machines, and then they started getting machines that were programmable.
Yeah.
And they were, everything was computerized, and they would drive it off of a CAD model. And the owner said a lot of the older guys in the shop didn't have a real interest in learning software and programming robotics and machines. And he's like, you just got out of school a year ago. Do you know anything about that? And I'm like, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be doing any more of what I was doing.
Right.
And so I started learning how to do some pretty complicated stuff, just teaching myself, taking the manual home, staying till midnight, 1 o'clock after hours, just playing with the machines, learning how to run them.
Right.
And so taught myself, and then found out I had a real talent for it. So I did that for 5 or 6 years. And from there, I was recruited over to Northwest Airlines. They wanted to set up rapid manufacturing for aircraft parts. So if the airplanes were on the ground and we couldn't find a part from the manufacturer or the surplus market, I would reverse engineer it and make it, get the airplanes back in the air.
Huge.
And then, so we did that, set up different manufacturing cells across the world. And then some people may remember Eastern Airlines.
Do I? Absolutely.
Eastern went out of business.
Absolutely.
And, Northwest wanted to pick up the routes, and so they wanted to get some airplanes, and so Eastern had a bunch of airplanes that were owned by the bankruptcy court. And
right.
So they said, hey, you're a guy that gets shit done. You're now a project manager in aircraft acquisitions. And I didn't know anything about it, really. And so I led a team buying airplanes, refurbishing them, contracting centers all over the world to do the work. I lived in Israel for a bit, spent some time in France, lived in Texas, Montreal.
Right.
And then moved up from there and was running a pretty nice size chunk of the airline of operations. So.
Okay, so then you did the airline thing.
Mm-hmm.
What I really am trying to get to is, we've got certain blocks, the serial entrepreneur portion of it, and I think did leaving the airlines start the birth of your first business, MFG?
It did. So no, actually, my first business was before that.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I was working at the airline,
yeah.
I was pretty proud where I'd gotten myself to for a guy that didn't have any real formal college education or anything, running about $800 million a year budget and some global operations. And then an opportunity presented itself for me to create a business in CAD software, be one of the first pioneers in PC-based 3D CAD software, the computer-aided design software. And so thought long and hard about it, and then I was like, I know it. It's a good opportunity to create an entrepreneurial business. And so I quit the job at the airline, and this company basically had a lot of customers that they wanted to roll into a reseller, basically, that would add value with training and things.
Yeah. So
I created that business and had about 2,000 customers that were using my CAD software across the South. And that was a good foray into entrepreneurship. But the thing that I quickly learned was when I would have group meetings of my customers to teach them about the software, they didn't really care. What they found value in was connecting with each other. Customers that were designing things were connecting with my customers that were making things. And they were off in the corner talking about things, and can you get me a price on that? And that's what people found the value in. And after doing that a number of times and leaving one of those, I'm driving out of the parking lot and I hear this commercial for lendingtree.com. They request your mortgage and let lenders compete. And that was a eureka moment. I said, wow, this was 1999. I'm like, someone should create a website where people want things manufactured and factories compete for the orders. And so I went home and I created mfg.com, 3-letter domain name, defines an industry, MFG, over a long weekend in 1999. And I introduced it to my customers the following Monday, my software customers.
Wow.
I did it that fast.
That quick.
Yeah, so it wasn't so pretty.
Right. No.
And
got the job done though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was it was a pretty basic HTML. I had a flat file database, and
Right.
and after people started using it, if they put a comma in their company name, it screwed me up.
It messed it up.
Because everything threw off all the fields, right? so I spent my whole day opening my database in
Right.
Notepad, taking
Right.
out commas.
Right.
You know, if I put a note on there, please don't use a comma.
Right.
Yeah.
Make it an error if they used it.
Yeah,
Right.
but that really took off. I mean, people started using this marketplace to get things manufactured. And it wasn't long. People started calling me saying, hey, can I join your marketplace? Yeah. And I was like, well, yeah, but you're not my software customer. And I said, if you'll pay me $1,000, you can join. And they're like, okay. So then checks started coming from everywhere, people joining all over the world,
Right.
creating this global marketplace. And those were times where building an internet business, you had to buy infrastructure, you had to buy servers, you had to build your data centers.
It's nothing like today.
Nothing like today. Today's so freaking easy, man. It's low cost,
just
lightweight.
do whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just kept investing, and it was the typical entrepreneurial story.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to raise money, so I just kept using my own.
Yeah.
So I cashed in the 401k. I leveraged 8 credit cards. I mortgaged the house. I mean,
Good for you.
because the business has taken on its life of its own. And I got to scale it, right? And the more successful it is, the more assets I need, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a subscription-based model. And so we were just bootstrapping, man. We'd sell a subscription, and we'd buy a chair. We'd sell it, and we'd buy a stapler. So we're just living off of revenues. And after about 4 years, I finally got it to profitability where I was starting to make some money. And that was a lot of fun getting it there.
Yeah.
So,
So and and the funny thing is I know somewhat the story
Mm-hmm.
of MFG because obviously we know each other really well. So you got to the point where there's some profitability, the company does well, you decide to sell.
Well, I got a call from a large public company, Dassault Systems, that owns a lot of CAD software and stuff like that. And they said, we'd like to, talk to you about buying your business.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, I'm interested because it's been a long, hard road. And
how many years are we in now?
at that point, it's about 5 years.
Okay.
5 years.
Okay.
It seemed like a long time.
Yeah.
About 5 years. And so we engaged. We agreed on terms, came to a price. I'm happy. More money than I thought I'd ever see in my life. And especially when you're broke because you got everything leveraged.
Yeah.
It's a nice thing.
Oh, yeah.
So we go through like 6 months of just because they were really big planners. They're a public company, and they wanted to just plan everything to happen day one after the sale. How does the integration happen? How does the marketing? How does the brand? So we go through all that, and we're about 2 weeks from closing, and I get a call from this guy that says, "Hello, you don't know me, but I work for Jeff Bezos, and Jeff would like to meet you."
Ooh wee.
He said, He said, "Are you going to be, near Seattle anytime soon? Otherwise, we can arrange a phone call." I said, "As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to be in Seattle in a couple days."
As a matter of fact, I'm here right now. Actually,
Yeah.
we can meet at the Starbucks, the original one. No, I got you.
Yeah. So
Making a point. Yeah, for sure.
So I went to Seattle, and I remember showing up in the lobby, and Amazon was in an old hospital. I don't know if a lot of people realize that or not. It still had all the signs up, like emergency room. So you kind of go through the emergency room to get to reception.
Love it.
And I remember I go to reception, and I'm like, and the receptionist, "Can I help you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm here to see Jeff Bezos." And she's like, "Do you have an appointment?"
Yeah. Who are you?
I'm
Go
thinking,
away.
and then, so she says, "Well, let me check." So I sat down with all the people filling out job applications, and I'm thinking, maybe I got punked.
Ashton Kutcher's gonna jump out at any
I
minute
said,
now.
maybe this is a pre-sale,
Yeah.
hit the lottery kind of a
Yeah.
punk.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so she does the thing, and then she says, "Oh, Mr. Free, someone will be down to get you in a minute. Mr. Bezos is expecting you." I'm like, "Fantastic!"
Right.
Now I'm the cool kid in the lobby.
Right.
But so we go up, we go to this conference room. Jeff comes in, and he just starts peppering me with questions about the business, like, why did you make this decision, and why did you do this, and why did you choose this revenue model? He knew so much about the business, I was blown away.
Wow.
And I could hardly get a word in with him just peppering me.
Right.
And I only found out later why he knew so much, and I'll get to that in a minute. But we go for an hour with him just peppering me. Have you thought of this? How are you going to do this? And
did you have answers for all of them?
I did pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
pretty good. Pretty good.
Okay.
And the handler comes after about an hour and says he has to go. And so he's like, "Well, it's been fantastic meeting you." And I said, he said, "I hope you realize this is a perfect storm. This is where someone with your background and preparedness meets an opportunity at the right moment in time, and magic is going to happen here." And he said, "Good for you. We'll be in touch." And I didn't think I'll ever see the guy again. So I asked, as he's walking out, I said, "Can I get a picture?" so I throw my arm around him, take a selfie, kind of a thing.
Hashtag.
I wish I would have
Amazon.
taken my name badge off.
Right,
It would have been
exactly.
cool. Like
Yeah.
visitor wasn't so cool. And so I leave. I go to my hotel. I think, what the hell just happened? And then the lady that works for him that had ushered me up called me and said, "Jeff said for me to send over a term sheet. He wants to invest in your business. And did you guys talk about terms?" And I'm like, "Not at all." And she said, "Well, let me see what he wants to do." So she called me back and said, "He said to get with you and get some financials from your CFO and what you think would be a deal that would be interesting to you. And we'll put a term sheet together and Jeff will invest." And I said, "Fantastic, but I'm not interested because I'm under NDA. I can't tell them I'm about to sell to a public company."
Yeah.
So I said, "But I'm not interested. Tell Jeff I'm flattered." And she says, "Okay, great." Well, she calls me back. So Jeff said he's not taking no for an answer. And she said, can I just send me the financials and I'll put together an offer? So I got the CFO to send them. And
There's nothing wrong with doing that, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, you haven't sold the company
Haven't
yet.
sold it yet.
Still yours.
A couple hours later, they sent an offer. It's pretty generous.
Right.
And I said, "Well, I'm really flattered again. If you can take time, thank you so much, but I'm just not interested."
Right.
Well, what'd they do? They went up again, and they sent me another offer. They just kept going up. And I was like, "No, thank you." Well, then Jeff calls me and says, this was the next day. He said, "All right, I've cleared my calendar for an hour. I got to know what's up." He said, "You're building a great business. You're going to run into a lot of things that I've already done. I think I can help you. I want to be in business with you. Why don't you want to be in business with me?" And I said, "Well, the jig is up. I got to tell you. Here's why, right?"
But you can't tell anybody.
Yeah. Like, here's why I can't. I'm selling. And he said, "Oh, hell no." He said, "If you really want to sell this business, I'll pay you $5 million more than whatever they're offering, and I'm going to hire you to run it." He said, "But that would be really stupid on your part." And he said, "This business is in its infancy. Just wait." And he said, let's get in business together and let's do this." And I said, "Well, I don't know." And he said, "Tell me, this is back up. Why did you accept that offer from that company?" And I said, "Well, I'm pretty leveraged. I haven't taken much of a salary for 5 years." He said, "No problem. We'll take care of that. We'll do a deal where you take cash off the table in the deal that makes you feel like you're set for all the money that you need. And then your mind is free. You're not worried about cash. And then you can build the business without stress." So what's your next point?
Easily done.
I said, "Well,
Scooby-Doo moment.
I said, "Well, there is one more." And I
Right.
said, "This is probably the most important one." I said, "All my employees know that we're closing this thing in less than 2 weeks. They got their stock options. They are looking at cars and houses and colleges for the kids. And if I decide to back out because I want to do a deal with you, that's just not right."
That's admirable.
Because these
Love it.
people that have poured their heart and soul in helping me build this business.
That's awesome.
And Jeff said, "Because you think that way, it's why I want to be in business with you." And he said, so what do you want to do? I said, I don't know. He said, well, why don't we just give them some money to make up for it? And let them keep their options.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, that's interesting. How do you? He said, tell you what I'll do. If you do the deal with me, I'll chip in $2 million as a bonus that I don't get any equity from, just for a incentive for you to do the deal with me. And he said, you take that $2 million and you hand it out to your employees. So I had 35 employees at the time.
It's a new definition of making it rain, by the way. Seriously, like walk in, like here you go.
That was probably the best night of my life.
Right.
It really was. I mean, I organized a venue in Buckhead, had a party, invited my employees, and some were like, well, I can't get a babysitter. I'm like, you get a freaking babysitter.
Yeah. You don't even understand what's going on.
You got to get a babysitter.
Yeah.
So I got everybody there. And my CFO, Lee Kennebrew, is just an incredible woman. And I said, how are we going to do this? By the amount of options people had, or whatever. And she said, one way could be, let's just take the cumulative number of months of all the employees. Doesn't matter what your position is in the company.
Yeah.
How many months have you been working hard at this?
Yeah.
And let's just divide the money up and hand it out that way. And so
sounds fair.
Yeah, it was. So that way, if you were a VP, but you've been there 4 months, you didn't get as much as the accounting clerk that had been there 3 years.
Very cool.
Right. And so people get there, and I decided to make an announcement. Right. The deal with Dassault is not going to happen. And people, I thought they were about to throw up. All right. Like all of a sudden the money is gone. Yeah. And I said, I had a video Jeff Bezos recorded for me of how he was going to be part of the business and help us. And I played the video. And I said, but you're still wondering what this means for you, didn't you?
Right.
And I said, well, Jeff chipped in some money for everybody. And people were, so I said, I started to create the logic without telling them, right? Yeah. So I called up so-and-so. I said, so-and-so has been with us for a month. Here's $15,000. And they're like, what?
Right.
And then the next person's like, you've been with us 3 months. Here's $45,000, right? And people were they started, wait a minute, there's logic here.
Yeah. This makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's one of this woman was in accounting, and I knew she struggled and had 2 kids, and she got about almost $400,000. And
that you gave her?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she was she was one of the longest people.
Wow.
Not one of the highest paid people, but she had been there slugging it out, man, and I could trust her, and she knew what she was doing. And it just turned into she fainted. She fainted.
Did she really?
She fainted.
She was all right though.
She fainted before she ever heard time. Just as the numbers were getting bigger,
she just blam.
And she was just calculating in her head.
Are you serious? She straight up passed out.
Straight up.
Wow.
Yeah, straight up. Anyway,
now, at that point, she not to get. I mean, she passes out. You grab her. You guys start laughing.
No, not me. Somebody did.
Somebody you guys start laughing after she comes to?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we finished that, and then it turned into one heck of a party.
Okay.
I mean,
I can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
Great legendary stories.
So that happens. You kind of you stay on for a little bit. Right?
Yeah, well, I stayed on for...
Well, you stayed on for a while, but...
6 years after that.
Right? Yeah. But then you start your exit strategy. You start getting out of MFG, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so about a year or so later, coming up 2008 time frame, Fidelity was Bezos chasing.
Yeah.
And they thought, if Bezos was involved, this must be great. So they came to see me and wanted to invest.
Right.
And I said, I got plenty of cash in the company.
Yeah.
I don't need any more. And they were aggressive. I said, I think we're going to create so much value over the next, 5 years. And they were like, we do too. So what if we pay you for that value now? What if we give you a forward-looking valuation?
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, what are you talking?
How much are we? Yeah.
And it was a number well north of $100 million. And nice. I was like, okay, I'm interested.
Right.
So we did a deal. Learned a lot about that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's pluses and minuses to that.
Yeah.
Because then 2008 happened. Everything declines in value, right?
Everything,
including businesses.
Yep.
So now you're sitting with a financial institutional investor that is investing other people's money into an asset that it's now fallen 50%. It wasn't worth what they paid in the beginning.
Absolutely right.
They were paying for the future.
Right.
Well, this financial investor, then all of a sudden, it's no fun running a business when you're the CEO and you got a board that's in the hole by a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was like, boy, but I felt like, man, I got to keep slogging it out though, because I felt a personal obligation for them not to lose money.
Right.
And so I continued on, and in late 2012, I turned 50 and I had colon cancer, and that was kind of the awakening. I went off, got that taken care of, turned out to be just fine.
Yeah.
But being away from the business a little bit,
Yeah.
I had realized that I didn't really enjoy it
Love
anymore.
it. Right. Yeah.
And when it was time to go back, I just didn't feel like I was excited. And I thought my life was over. This is a wake-up call. I don't know what I want to do, but I don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
You run a business hard for 13 years, it's enough.
I think what was great about that though, I remember obviously when you went through those, that particular obstacle in life, and we had the conversation. You said that same thing to me. I just don't love it anymore.
Yeah.
And the funny part was you wanted to kind of retract back to like the trade school, like I want to make things again. I actually want to be in the shop and make stuff again.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you started another company called Zeki.
Yeah, Zeki, Z-Y-C-I.
Yeah.
Strange name.
Where did you get that name from, by the way?
Well, throughout the years.
I never really asked you this question. This is new to me, too.
Yeah, so throughout the years, I've been a pretty big buyer of domain names.
Yeah.
I used to spend time at night drinking wine on this website called deleteddomains.com. And that's where, when they expire, somebody doesn't renew them, it pops up. So I'd watch these domain names pop up for sale. This one just expired. I'm like, boom, got it.
Right.
So if something had a 4-letter domain name or was pronounceable, I would take it.
Do you still own those domains?
I got a lot of them.
Okay.
I got a couple hundred.
Yeah.
And if you ever need one, let me know.
Okay.
I probably got one that'll work.
I'll make sure.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I never lose Decatur FM. I know what you're doing at night.
Yeah. So when I started Zeki, I wasn't really sure. I knew I did want to take a break after running hard for 13 years, get past the cancer. I just wanted to enjoy it. Maybe hobbyist making things. So I bought a CNC machining center and rented a little small shop, having fun, just reconnecting, not having the stress of a board, global operations, and all that stuff, and really enjoying it. And I wasn't sure if it was going to be a business or a hobby, or if by reconnecting with getting my hands dirty in manufacturing, maybe it was going to spawn another software as a service or some internet idea. I didn't think manufacturing would ultimately be the business. But I remember this phone call from this guy that had been one of my customers, was a defense contractor doing design for the military, and he was working on a landing gear component for an F-16, designing it. And he called me up and he's like, hey, you want a challenge? I'm like, yeah. And he said, I'm going to send you a file. How about making this part for an F-16? And it's a test prototype, and it's made out of this material called Ferium M54. I had never heard of it. And I looked at the drawing, and I'm guessing, I know about the price of steel, right? And I said, $8,000. And he's like, all right, here's the purchase order. I'm like, that was quick. Well, when I researched it, I realized that was the toughest material ever known to man. It's new material.
Yeah.
New steel.
Yeah.
So the material cost me $10,000.
Oof.
Then I had to start buying these cutters, and it would just, like the cutters made out of carbide and different, it would just rip them. Like it wouldn't even dent it. I'm like, holy smoke.
Right.
So I spent $30,000.
That's how much you lost. Right. Okay.
Making that part that I sold for $8,000.
Right. Right.
And a month of my time.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
But I got it.
You did.
So I got it. And the guy was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm like, you just don't need to know how the sausage was made.
You just don't need to know what's in it. Just put it on.
It was
not.
It was not pretty,
fun.
but it looks good now.
Right.
So the guy that the salesman that sold that material was talking to those guys and said, how'd that part came out? And he goes, look at this. So the sales guy says, you found somebody that can machine that? Who is this? So the guy called me up and he said, hey, I sell that material and nobody buys it because no one knows how to machine it. And I'm like, well, I do now.
Right, right. I figured it out.
Yeah, I figured it out.
$30,000 later.
So he said, well, I'm going to start passing your name around. So that was a couple of weeks later, I get a call from a rocket company in California who I'm not allowed to use their name.
Right.
I was about to do it.
Yeah.
They're self-landing rockets.
Yeah.
And said, hey, we got some components we want to design out of this Farium M54, and we hear you know how to do it. And I'm like, yeah. So next thing you know, they're a customer.
It wasn't $8,000 then, though.
No. No, I learned my lesson on that. And then it just went from there. Those engineers are telling other engineers at other companies, and it just took off. This is 5 years ago, and it hasn't stopped.
Right.
There is so much demand for manufacturing at that kind of level of aerospace and defense, robotics. There's so much demand in this country that I don't do any advertising, I don't do any marketing, and we are at max capacity all the time.
So here comes the bulk of our conversation tonight, which leads into it, right? Reviving American manufacturing. You've talked about it quite a bit. You're like an advocate for it, right? Some would say, you know what? If we're going to manufacture here, it's going to cost an arm and a leg. Let's just go to China, right? I'm leading up to something.
Yep.
And I'm about to play you this clip, and you know what? Wouldn't I know it? You actually had it on your Facebook page, because I actually had this clip a couple of months ago when I saw it. But Tim Cook actually had a conversation with Fortune magazine, so I want to let everybody listen to it, and then I want you to kind of, jump in on it. So this is what he had to say.
There's a confusion about China that, and let me at least give you my opinion. The popular conception is that companies come to China because of low labor cost. I'm not sure what part of China they go to, but the truth is China stopped being the low labor cost country many years ago. And that is not the reason to come to China from a supply point of view. The reason is because of the skill and the quantity of skill in one location and the type of skill it is. Like the products we do require really advanced tooling. And the precision that you have to have in tooling and working with the materials that we do are state of the art. And the tooling skill is very deep here. In the US, you could have a meeting of tooling engineers, and I'm not sure we could fill the room. In China, you could fill multiple football fields. It's that vocational expertise is very deep, very, very deep here. And I give the education system a lot of credit for continuing to push on that, even when others were de-emphasizing vocational. Now I think many countries in the world have woke up and said, this is a key thing, and we've got to correct that. But China called that right from the beginning.
Your thoughts on that?
He's absolutely right.
My question is, why is that, though? Why is that? In the middle of that conversation, he said, if we invited a whole bunch of American engineers and CNC machinists or whatever, you couldn't fill the. Why is that?
Yeah. So back around, I guess it was 1988 or so, when Chairman Mao opened up China for global trade, for outside trade, and and embraced commune capitalism. Right. Everybody rushed, because the labor arbitrage was incredible at the time. And so you're companies are closing down factories all over America, throughout the Rust Belt, everywhere, relocating that business, but sending the workers, the skilled ones, over to China to train them, to live there, right? Train those factories how to do that job. And, for a tiny fraction of what it had been. So when that happened, manufacturing in America was a really, really bad career choice, because there was an overabundance of people and not enough places to work. And when that happens, no parents are going to encourage their kids to go into manufacturing. The trade schools, like the one I went to, closed their program down because nobody wanted to go into manufacturing. And so what we're witnessing is we have skipped an entire generation. And now we're saying we need to bring that back. Manufacturing is important. China has indeed evolved on the cost scale. Labor has gone up. Raw materials have gone up. all sorts of things have made it where there's still some advantage depending on what you're doing there. But in America, not only do we not have the workers, we don't have the infrastructure. The infrastructure for steel, aluminum, anywhere near, we certainly make it here, but not on the scale, right? If they were to say no more manufacturing in China, we bring everything back to America, we couldn't possibly
handle it. Couldn't handle the load.
Couldn't handle the load. Not
Right.
Yeah, it's people and it's infrastructure.
Right.
Infrastructure for all the inputs that go into manufacturing. And so now we've got this gap where you've got this maker movement of younger folks.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm one.
Yep.
Yep.
And then you've got the old tool and die makers that are in their 60s that learned just prior to Chairman Mao opening up China.
Mm-hmm.
And that is part of the problem we're seeing right now. We skipped a generation.
So it'd be hard for us to catch up.
It would be very hard to catch up.
But do you believe that we could revive American manufacturing again? Or is that ship sailed?
I think that ship has sailed. I think American manufacturing is reviving, but it's never going to be what it was. It's never going to be where it wholesale comes back to America. But there are technologies today around making things that make them super efficient, where we're taking out labor content. And that's through, in the machining business. There's just really interesting high-speed strategies and things, software that we never had before. AI getting into robots to do things that humans would do with vision systems. That makes you really inefficient, where in China they may have 5 people doing something, but here they've got 1 or 2 and 2 robots, right? So you start to eat into the labor arbitrage, right? So there are scenarios that work like that work. But most of our manufacturing capacity today in America is eaten up. It's at least in the sector that I play at the very high precision, high skilled stuff, by the defense sector, defense and aerospace. Right? People may or may not be familiar with a term called ITAR. ITAR stands for International Trafficking in Arms Regulations. Yeah. So any components that go onto something military, rockets,
has to be made here.
Has to be made in America.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the work that tends to fill up a lot of our capacity. And from the supplier, that's actually really good work, because you're not competing with Mexico, with China, with anyone else.
Right here.
It's got to be done in America.
Yeah. We can all understand that.
Yep. It's complex.
Yep.
Most of it.
Yep.
It's low volume.
Yep.
You're not. You might be building 1 billion iPhones in China, but here you're going to build 200 or 500 fighter jets.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not high volume production, but it's very high attention to detail.
Right.
And that's the kind of work that works really well in American manufacturing. And I think we'll do more and more of that.
But when Tim Cook was speaking, you just mentioned iPhones, right? And he was talking about, the type of tooling they require, meaning Apple is very high precision, right? I mean, that's what you're doing. So
yeah, well, we're not really doing tooling. We're doing part making.
But you know what I mean? Like the high precision portion of things.
That's
like,
right.
I think that was kind of, I think he went a little too far with that, saying that we possibly couldn't do that here in America anymore.
Not at any scale.
Scale, yes, but we can do that.
We can do it.
Okay.
Absolutely,
Okay.
we can do it, but
Okay.
not at any scale.
Okay.
Because there are, for instance, it is very hard. I mean, you think how many freaking plastic parts there are in the world? I mean, they're plastic. And on every one of those has a complex injection mold that gets built. Right? And there are, China's like, there's a mold shop everywhere building injection molds.
It's like a Starbucks.
They're like Starbucks.
Yeah.
And the talent is incredible, and how efficient they are at producing them is incredible.
I just don't understand how we can't do that though. Like, how can we not compete on that level anymore?
Yeah, we lost because we taught them how to do it. We closed up shop and we said we're just going to let them produce it. We'll buy it because the margins will be higher. The margins will be higher.
Right.
And but we've paid a big price for that.
No, I know we have. I mean, I honestly, as we move forward and in a state of the world today, and we're talking about how, we need to revive our country, for all intents and purposes. I'm not going to make it great again.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how do we bring things like that back?
Yeah.
And you have guys like yourself that are spearheading, the high precision portions of things that you're doing, just for the Department of Defense. But, I mean, that also gives hope that we could probably start teaching this generation, and catching up a little bit.
Definitely. But I will lead to an interesting point here. I mean, there's a shortage of, very experienced people to be mentors, right?
Right.
So,
yeah, that's true.
I floated an idea out in an article a couple of years ago, and I got lambasted on social media and stuff. But I'll say it again. So, we don't have enough people. We don't have enough mentors, enough people to train. We went to China and Taiwan and we trained them. Maybe we should reverse that. Maybe we should
have them come here.
We should start hiring from there, and they'll be happy to come here. Let them come here. We all of a sudden can fill these manufacturing jobs, right? And then the young guys here, the people that want to learn the trade, will have people to learn from.
Yeah, you get hell for that.
And we develop the skill.
You definitely get hell for that.
Yeah, I probably would.
Yeah, you would.
But where else? How else could we ramp quickly?
Yeah,
that's the way to ramp.
Quick fix.
Quickly.
I get that. It's a quick fix.
Right. So, but here's the thing. So I actually checked into it. I thought, well, maybe I'm going to hire a couple of guys from China to come here in my shop and help me develop skill. Right. Well, you can't get a work visa for a machinist. Right. But you can get them for programmers from India all day long. Tell me there's a freaking shortage. See, people are bringing those programmers into America because they want to pay them less.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true. You can't do that for the Chinese.
You try to bring a machinist in here. It's not because we want to pay them less. Yeah. It's because we don't
know something.
There's a shortage.
Yeah.
There truly is a shortage of them.
Yeah.
So basically, I checked into it, getting a visa for a couple of guys, and the way the laws are, they need to have an advanced degree in something, or be a fashion model or an athlete to get a
What? Are you serious?
So machinists
don't have an
advanced
vocational
degree,
right?
And they're typically not fashion model worthy.
Or athletic.
So I'm pretty much out of it.
Right.
But it would be nice to see, I think, an exception for a while, and say, let's bring the talent here to ramp our manufacturing industry, and give them a temporary. I mean, if they end up becoming citizens, well, that's fine. I mean, we're all pro-immigration in this country, right? So,
here comes the other conversation. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. But I mean, that was one of my ideas for how do you solve the talent problem? Let's go where the talent is,
right,
and bring them over to help.
I mean,
we taught them.
Yeah, we taught them. So obviously that's still on the. We'll work on that. It's working. That's working progress. We'll see how that goes based on what we're doing. But so with that being said, where does that leave us right now? Just as it is, right? Like you'll continue to do these defense contracts, and how many? My question is, how many Zekis are there? Would you say in
the U.S.?
In the U.S., like how many people like you are there in the U.S.? Are there a lot? Because he said you couldn't even fill a conference room.
No, there's people that are operating at our level.
Right.
There's less than 100. And I don't know where that number is, but probably less than 100 companies in America. And these aren't big companies. I mean, we're like 25 people,
Right.
So these aren't big companies.
Right.
And so there's probably 25 companies operating at that level.
You put that same company in China. That's how many?
Oh my God!
Right.
I used to have a division of MFG.com in China.
Yeah.
And we had calculated that to be 800,000.
Really? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Holy smoke! Yeah. I would never.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. We're in trouble.
That's what I mean. The mass,
we're in trouble.
The mass is so big, right? And I was at one time I was in Asia, I think in Singapore, and I was giving a talk, and people were asking me questions about China and the raising cost and things, and I said, well, whether it's China or if China becomes too expensive, then the work will just move to another low-cost country.
Has it?
I said maybe it'll move to Vietnam or
Right.
Thailand
Yeah.
or somewhere. And then this Asian guy stood up and he said, no, it won't. And he said, I think he was from Thailand. He said, one, we don't have the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And two, they have garnered such mass and scale that it's just, at this point, it's unbeatable.
They own it.
They own it.
They've coined it.
Yeah.
They've figured it out.
Yeah.
Holy smoke.
Yeah, he said it's just. He said the infrastructure doesn't exist anywhere else, and no one else has the economic power to go build that infrastructure. And if they do, it's going to take a long, long, long time.
Yeah, and definitely they've got the head start on that. What fascinates you about global trade?
The disparity. I mean, I think it is interesting how skill sets are in certain places around the world. Pockets have formed, whether there's stuff in Eastern Europe that they do well, or to China or Malaysia or wherever it is. I think it's interesting the way niches have formed, and it seems to me like that is growing, where certain regions of the country are becoming of the world are becoming more specialized at certain things, and that becomes like, this is where you go for injection molds. This is where you go for high-end textile fabrication. This is where you go. And it seems like the world is each country or pockets of countries is finding their lane.
What's our lane, you think, lately?
You know what? Our
Innovation?
Innovation. We are incredible at design.
Right.
And I'm fortunate to get to see some of the designs that companies are working on, because we get to make
U.S. companies.
U.S. companies.
Okay.
We're so far ahead of anybody else in the world. It'll blow your mind, the stuff that we're doing.
That we're thinking of, that we're coming up with?
No. Stuff that we're doing.
That we're actually doing.
Stuff that we're actually doing.
Okay.
The design talent that we have is incredible.
Right.
Now, the talent to get it made is what's scarce. But the engineering talent, the physicists, the people in America, it just blows my mind every day when customers call me up and I have to sign an NDA and I look at stuff that they're working on. It blows my mind that this is indeed the greatest country in the world, because the intellect that is here is just second to none.
As a person who came up just from, like you said, just from here to rising, right? You've seen a lot of stuff happen, and you're saying obviously we're this amazing country. Okay, there are a lot of people, and I love having conversations with you about this. There are a lot of people that don't believe that, right? A lot of people will, say a whole bunch of bad things about the place that they were born, the place that they grew up, right?
All depends on the lens you're looking through.
Right, exactly. And one thing I love about you, especially with your social, one thing that you're infamous for, and I love it, is Mitch Free will actually just post something that's on his mind, free thinker, right? And it doesn't matter if you get offended by it or whatever, just here's a thought and just watch the comments come in. And what I love about you is a lot of times you don't even really respond. You just kind of let it just organically just grow, right?
Yeah.
Why do people, like, if we're in such a great country, why are we faced with some of the issues socially? I think a lot of it spawns from the social aspect of things, but why are we letting that hold us back?
Yeah, it's the great question. The things that I think about is how fortunate I've been to have spent a lot of time in different places around the world and different cultures and know lots of people, and I love everybody, man. I've got friends everywhere. I've lived in Israel for a while. I've got Israeli friends, Muslims friends, China, Malaysia, South. It doesn't matter. I love everybody. But I think by being in their country and witnessing their culture, I just developed this great appreciation, and I think people that would complain about America or something probably just haven't had the opportunity to go spend a lot of time in other countries, because I think once you do that, and it heightens your appreciation for what we have and how wonderful this country is and how it is the land of opportunity like no other. I mean, look at Venezuela and what is going on there
Ain't
right
that true?
now, right? I've got some great employees that were political refugees working for me now. I mean, and to hear their story, it just breaks my heart. I mean, this is an upper middle class family that just had to flee the country because of what's going on there. You know, the inflation, 8,000% going up like crazy.
Yeah.
And you know, everything, their money becoming worthless, their homes becoming worthless, there's no food to eat. And that's socialism that's going on there, right? And I think, so I think people that would criticize this country, maybe they just haven't had, because you know what? I believe everyone's a good person, right? Everybody thinks they're right and they believe in their view. They maybe just haven't had the experience or whatever to see through a different lens. So anyway, there's no way that we take everybody that lives in America on a tour around the world and say, look at this and see how great our country is.
Right.
But so when I see things and I see people responding to things, I just have to think about where they're coming from with their responses and what they've been exposed to, and that's probably, I would probably think and feel the same way had I had the same experiences.
What I like about you, not to get off of what we were talking about, but this is also really important. Like, what I like about some of the things that you do is, I mean, when I say some of the things you do, things that you put out there, like socially or just in conversation, it's very fair, I would say. Like, I'll just, current events, for example. Everybody's talking about, our president's talking about building a wall, right? Everybody says, oh, why are we going to build a wall? And we don't have an immigration problem. And only this president would think about this. And then, so Mitch comes across and hits him with the Obama speech, right? Like, it's both sides.
It's both sides.
I'm not picking a side. You're not saying what side you're on. It's just like, listen, man, like, you're saying, and you're, excuse my language, you're bitching about this, but it was said to you only but 3 years ago, just by a different person, and you were cheering.
Yeah.
Didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's just pettiness, right? That's just pettiness. I mean,
but does that pettiness hold us back from take the race that we're in against a country like China, right? To get ahead. Yeah. Or not I mean, to get ahead.
It absolutely does.
You know what I mean?
We should be spending our energy, right, on competing.
Exactly.
Our energy on fixing healthcare, our energy on so many important things, right? But our politicians can't get their work done because they're just trying to undermine each other.
Right.
Right? And that's the thing that troubles me, is just get your work done. We're paying those people to work, right? But they're not working. They're just fighting. And that's a really sad statement. The
and I'm going to draw a blank, so you're going to have to remind me, but remind me, who was the libertarian that ran for governor? What was his name? For Georgia. Do you remember? I forgot. But he was Libertarian Party. He ran for Georgia. He ran for governor of Georgia, and he made a good point during a debate. He said, most of our politicians today, they're doing this for personal gain. Has nothing to do with being a civil servant.
Yeah.
A public servant. Yeah. Right. So it's
I think if you really look at it, our political system is not set up. Well, everything, political, media, is not set up to attract the best and the brightest. That's just the pure, honest truth. If you're the best and the brightest,
you're not in office.
No, why would you do that?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to go. You're gonna get, people are gonna just try to tear you down every day, undermine you.
Yeah.
If you're the best and the brightest, you can make a lot more money doing something else.
Yeah, it ain't worth the $400,000 a year in the White House, right?
No, come on. I mean, he's not doing it for money.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he's not even taking a check anyway.
Not even taking a check.
So
but it's just not set up to take the best and the brightest.
Yeah.
And some of the best and the brightest have probably lived very rich lives with experiences.
Yeah.
And they probably couldn't even pass the muster of all the opposition research.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I dig that.
And so I think we're there is no perfect candidate out there. But one thing, I like the model of Singapore. that it's a very select, interesting country where their politicians and government leaders, well, not really politics, the government leaders, government workers, are paid the most of any jobs in the country. They're the highest paid people. So they don't have corruption. They attract the best and the brightest.
Yeah.
It seems logical.
How about that for an option?
The police are one of the highest paid jobs in the country.
So they don't have to worry about,
It just like, it seems so smart. Just attract the best and the brightest.
Yeah. Well, obviously we're not doing that for whatever reason.
We're not.
So my question to you is this. We have a generation now that you were just saying of makers, right? Obviously way different than the generation, not the gap, but the one before that were the toolers and so on and so forth. How do you guide somebody? How do you mentor these guys, right? Like we have a Decatur Makers Club here in the neighborhood, right? Really bright kids, or people my age that just are interested.
Yeah.
How do you mentor people like that to say, this is a lane that you should really look at for many reasons?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about getting a Department of Defense contract, but just other reasons other than,
Yeah.
where do you start? What do you do? What do you tell them?
Yeah. I mean, I tell them, if you think this is your passion and you think you've got a knack for it, man, the world is your oyster. I mean, they're good paying jobs. They're in demand. Any company that does, high skilled manufacturing that I know are looking for young, smart people that want to put the time in. And that's the important thing, right? Yeah. There are a lot of folks today that want instant gratification. Well, right?
That's what we live in this day.
That's right. Yeah. And so, in the manufacturing trade, the high precision, complex stuff, it's going to take you 4 or 5 years to really hone the craft, right? There's just no shortcut. You just got to get the experience. You got to get your hands dirty. You got to stone a piece of metal for a while. You got to drill a lot of holes. You got to put in
mess up. You got to break some tools.
Yeah,
you got to break some bits. Yeah,
it's going to be frustrating, and you got to put in that 10,000 hours to become an expert.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I find sometimes people just aren't willing to put in that effort because we've become such an instant gratification society. And so we will bring in some young people, and we explain to them this is about what it's going to take.
Yeah.
You're like, oh no. I was wanting to be running that complex thing and doing all this and making all this money, in a year.
About 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm like, you're going to be doing a lot of stuff that's going to be tedious, but that's just what you got to do to get the craft and hone the craft. And there's not a lot of people that seem to be wanting to put in that effort and stick it out for some period of time to hone the craft.
I think everybody just sees the end goal and they don't see what's in the middle, and that's the hard part, and just trying to figure out how do you tantalize somebody to say, actually jump in and take the time, do the 10,000 hours, become a master of it, because once you become a master,
write your own ticket.
How many Jeff Bezos are going to call you and what you're doing,
that's
right?
Right. That's right. That's right.
And that's the thing that I'm trying to we all try to figure out, like, how do you get to that point, because I feel like we're really, really losing right now. Well, in certain areas. Yeah. I mean, we're...
Well, the other thing, a lot of people today want the sexy job, right? They want the sexy job. They want to be in the fashion industry. They want to be in something that's cool and hip and whatever, right? But those markets are so saturated with people wanting to do it because everybody wants to be doing something that's cool and hip. I personally think manufacturing is cool and hip, but there is a much better pay, job security, career path. Now, you know what? So do that, make your money, and then use your money to go do something sexy.
So, buy the fashion line. Yeah, you don't have to design it; you can buy it.
Just buy it. Yeah. Buy the Prada, the Gucci, the whatever.
Yeah.
Don't try to be it. Don't try to be in that. Just make the money and consume it.
Right.
Enjoy the luxury life. Exactly.
Yeah. That's something that we're gonna have to work on. I got a feeling, because as it stands right now, when you can just jump on Netflix and catch an entire season the day it comes out, what you're saying right now is not a good pitch, right? I mean, to the person, not to me. I mean, to the individual. Yeah. So, trying to figure out how to get on that side of the fence. That's the thing.
It's just, I mean, it's such common logic, but there just aren't any shortcuts to success.
A lot of people would think differently, but yeah, I agree.
I mean, just aren't any shortcuts.
I agree.
You just got to put in the time, and people that that become successful in whatever it is that success means to them, not necessarily monetarily or whatever it is, spiritual, whatever. They have all put a lot of time into that, and a lot of the time was painful, meaning it wasn't pleasurable, it wasn't glamorous, it was drudgery, but they did it and they got to the other side.
Yeah, what they do, they did what you did. They leveraged 8 credit cards, your mortgage, and everything else, and probably 8 ramen noodles for.
I went to the hospital twice thinking I was having a heart attack because payroll was due and I didn't have the money.
Oh yeah.
It always worked out.
Well, we've all been there.
But the anxiety is through the roof, right?
Yeah, you've got to be willing to endure it. Yeah. Real quick, I want to find out, and not necessarily talking about now, but something that you can speak on, because I know a lot of stuff you can't. Coolest thing that that you've made that you could speak on?
Yeah, it's a number. I'll talk about a number of things.
Yeah.
So the one of my favorites is a customer we have, Boston Dynamics.
Okay.
They make the coolest humanoid robots, big dog robots. These things are just incredible. And my wife and I, my wife is very engaged in the business, and we were up in Boston visiting them a while back, and they had this robot, and they had it do a dance for her, and it was just the coolest thing ever watching this. They are so human-like, lifelike, smart. They're artificial intelligence.
Right.
Seeing those things is really incredible.
Yeah.
Some of the satellite stuff, that is miniaturization, and the technology and some of the satellites that are being put up. There's a company called SpaceX that's putting up a satellite constellation of like 4,500 satellites. That is pretty darn incredible. We make a lot of components for a line.
SpaceX is whose company is that?
Elon Musk.
Elon's.
Yeah. We do some of this stuff for self-driving cars, LiDAR systems, which are looking at the road out in front of you. They're just one of my favorites. Is we do a lot for a company called Stratos Aircraft. They're making very light jets, really changing the game on personal jet travel. Just lots of interesting stuff.
Man, that's got to be wild that you, like, a part that I made is in space. Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, if that doesn't blow your mind.
I watch the launches and hold my breath.
Man, I hope we got this right. I really hope we got this right.
Yeah.
That's crazy, because it's like first you have this Jeff Bezos moment. It's like, dude, call me later. My stuff's in space. I'll talk to you in a minute. Right? How crazy is that?
Yeah.
To say that. I think that's awesome, man.
And I get more satisfaction out of what we're doing now at Ziki and making those components and turning something, a block of raw metal into something so like a piece of art that does something so functional that I did, moving around, internet stuff, like pushing around, around bits.
Have this person meet this person. Yeah, that's great. And I can see why you got kind of tired of that. You can do that, but so many times.
I was facilitating everybody else making stuff. I want to make stuff.
Yeah.
And it's so rewarding to just to see the end product.
I mean, your shop is amazing to just walk through the shop, because I've obviously been there a couple of times, and it's like just to see the machines just at work.
Yeah.
A welder over here. This person's doing, is on this particular machine. You got a 5-axis machine over here.
Yeah.
And
I would, by the way, I would encourage people to stop by and see us. We're in Chambly.
Yeah.
And people want to come by and see what manufacturing is really like.
Yeah. I should bring like some guys from the Decatur makers over there to check that out.
Absolutely.
That would be pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
Like, that would definitely blow their mind.
Absolutely.
That would be really, really cool.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. My question to you is this, because I ask everybody before, we close out our interviews. With what you're doing, what you've done in your life, what you're doing right now, and where you're going, what would be your advice to just make our community just a better place? Like, how do we use what you're doing just to become just better, just as a community, as people, just community, state, city, just everything. Just how do we become better, period? Just with everything that's going on right now. Like, how do we just improve?
Yeah. A few sound bites I'll throw out is, one, stop being so easily offended.
Yeah.
Right? People just get all bent out of shape on stuff that's just, it's just trivial, right?
Yeah.
And then that incites them to take adverse positions, and we just need to love everybody. Everybody. I remember one of the most powerful things I did in my life was go to the Dale Carnegie course, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That was a life changer for me when I was in my early 20s, and set some real foundational stuff for me. But
that still applies today.
It still applies.
Yeah,
still applies.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that really impacted my life was around thinking about putting yourself in the other person's position.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody wants to be a good person. Everybody wants to do good in life. Everybody wants respect. Everybody wants to be loved.
Yeah.
Right? So we all want the same thing. So how do you enable someone else to have those things? How do you enable them to feel loved, to feel respected? Because if everybody in our neighborhood, in our state, in our country, if everybody felt loved and respected and valued, this would be an incredible place, even more so than what it is right now. So I try to think about that with my employees and anyone that I encounter, right? How do I make them feel like the wonderful person that I know they are?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That I know they are.
Yeah.
And so I just think it all comes back to putting yourself into the other person's shoes, and just go out of your way a little bit to do it.
And then what about the person that's sitting there, the innovator that's thinking, I know I want to get this done, I just don't know how. Like, what do you tell them to better themselves, to take the risk, to take the leap of faith?
Well, I think the biggest risk is not acting, right? That's the biggest risk. The worst thing that's going to happen when you start acting on an idea, on building a business, inventing something, improving yourself, whatever it is, you just gotta start.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just like if you're going to learn to ride a unicycle or whatever.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it's awkward.
Yeah.
You're going to fall off.
Yeah.
You're going to bust your butt.
Yeah.
But when you do that a few times, then you're past that. You're past the awkwardness.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're riding the unicycle. You're building the business. You're creating products.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There is no right path. There is no right path. There is no prescribed path. Just pick the one that feels natural, and you may bump into some walls.
Well, you're going to. It's not may.
You're going to bump into some walls.
Yeah.
And it's going to be uncomfortable, and you got to be okay with uncomfortable and okay with asking questions that you might think, oh, that's a dumb question. There is no dumb question. If you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
And just start and be willing to go through some bumps and bruises. You'll end up in a great place. If your idea doesn't work out, your product doesn't work, whatever it is you want to do, what you learned in the process makes you more valuable as an employee or whatever else you're going to go do, because you got an education that you just couldn't buy.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Man, thank you so much for coming by. This is awesome.
Yeah,
man.
my pleasure.
Find him at zyci.com, zyci.com. It's a cool website.
Yeah, thank you.
I did the first version of it.
Yeah,
and then ever since then it evolved because he got really big. But we definitely got to have you back.
Yeah.
And also, I forgot to tell people, you're a contributor for Forbes.
Yep.
Right.
I write for Forbes.
So he writes for Forbes too. So you can catch him. You can catch his blogs on some of his entries on Forbes. Really, really interesting stuff too as well.
Yeah.
So go to that, and then obviously Mitch Free on social.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to follow him on Facebook because his his posts are always great. You definitely always spark thinking and conversation, and even disagreements. And I feel sometimes we need to disagree at times.
Sometimes I don't jump in because who am I to say someone feels wrong?
Yeah,
you feel how you feel. Feelings have no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
But you know what I like about it too is when those conversations do happen, because I'm guilty of jumping in on some of them too.
Yeah.
But they all resolve themselves. Like if you go through the threads, like eventually people will say, like, yeah, you were right, I was wrong. All right, we're cool. You know what I mean? Let's just work it out, and it's all good. So, so it's a great way to spark conversation. It's a great way to start understanding people. So, thank you so much for coming by.
That's my pleasure.
All right,
My
guys,
pleasure.
and we will catch you here Monday, right here on Decatur FM. We've got a great week planned ahead for you. Got some cool interviews coming up. So be sure you tune in. And obviously, all weekend long, we're right here. Great music, great information, great stuff on things that are going on in the city. We're gonna get Mitch back out here to come have dinner out here with us. You've been to some restaurants out here, have you? All right. Well, we got some new ones too to introduce you to. So. So until then, guys, enjoy the weekend. Do me a favor, stay warm, and we'll talk to you soon right here on Decatur FM. See ya, bye.
What's up, everybody? My name's Mike Johnson. I'm a Decatur resident and host of Voices of Decatur. Brand new show on Decatur FM. It comes on Monday through Thursday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., where we talk about any and everything happening in the city. And I've always said I love to listen to different points of view. And this one was great when we had Decatur resident, Ironman athlete, and coach Matthew Rose in the studio, and we talked about going the distance in sports, life, and as a community.
Samuel Beckett's got a great quote: fail again, learn.